Hey class, ready to continue the 8-1 C string? So this is the second demo for that part of the lecture. So we are going to do this project to convert user input text to get rid of all the space between text and make it a good looking sentence. But then we are going to do something weird. So we are going to look at each word. If a word has an I in it, then we are going to capitalize the word, meaning that the first character will be uppercase and the rest of the characters are going to be lowercase. We are going to assume the sentence will have 10 or less words and each word will have 10 or less characters. So let's look at our program. So I'm not going to write the whole program. It just takes too long for you to sit there and see me type. And so I have this kind of like a template. So what is working right now is that there's a while loop. This big while loop is going to get the user input. So basically we already prompted user for input, and we are going to run this while loop while count is smaller than or bigger than 0. Why is it 2 is because I want to at least test it before we continue. And if next is not a end of line. So once we see the end of line, we know the user already finished entering their sentence. So the first thing that we do is to process the white space. So this whole thing get rid of any white space. And this line doesn't have to be here actually. So it will read one character. It will make sure it's not a return. And then it also make sure it's a space. So it get rid of all the space. If it's a return, then it will break out of the loop. Just one right outside. So it will break out of this loop and then it will then go to output. So but if the character is not space, is not end of line, it will put the character back, and then we would use the arrow to input the word inside our C string that we have declared here. So we have a sentence C string, we have a word C string, we have an I for counting, we have a count of how many times we looped, and then we have a next character for checking if we should end the while loop. And then you will see that, so after we get one word at a time, right now we will see out the word because we are still testing this code. We are then going to check if there's an I inside that word. If there is, we capitalize that word and then we add it to the sentence. So that's the two main steps that we are going to demo here. And then we will output the result. One function that we would use to do this step, maybe we can talk about that when we demo that two steps. Right now, let's test the while loop to make sure that it's okay to get the words. And right now is maximum 2 words. So let's see. We'll compile the program and then let's try. Actually, I was doing just empty line. It works. And if I type one word, it will work also. Like you see, we actually print out. So we see in a word and then we see our word. And then let's say put it this way, it will work too. And if there's empty space in the front, it still works. And you can, if we type 3 words, for example, so you will see that it only processed the first 2. So it seems like counting 10 also works. Why do we want to have that restriction, right? Why do we have restriction of how long a word is, how long a sentence is? It's because we need to know how much space, how much basically the C string, how big a C string we should be allocating, and that's why it's important. So since that part is working, we can change this back to 10. And now we are going to use this function to capitalize a string. So we should test the function first to see if it works. So I'm going to just comment out some code so that we can just run the driver function. So this is the driver function that I wrote earlier. What it does is that it declare a C string. It call the capitalize, and then it will see out the capitalized string and see if this is functioned correctly. So basically I just changed the program into actually what happened is I'll do Control-C because we didn't compile. And so you see the input is like this, and then the output has ignored all the other characters, but for letters it all changed to lowercase, except the first one is uppercase. So let's look at this capitalize function. What we are doing is, if the string the parameter basically, if it's equal to 0, the length, so now you can see how to use this string strlen predefined function. And remember, we have to have the C string directive for it to work. If it's not there, it will complain. And then if it's equal to 0, nothing needs to be done because we are not going to have to, nothing to be done. So if otherwise, we would change the first character to upper, which is to uppercase. This we talk about it, I think, in the input output stream, output file stream module. And then for the rest of the string, we change everything to lowercase. If it's a semicolon or those characters, it actually will ignore it and just have this. It doesn't really change the character at all. And so let's assume we tested good enough that this function works. Just want to remind you that this is how I recommend that you write your program also, one step at a time. Test when you write one small piece of code, always test if things are working. And whole program and then try to debug because it's way harder. So now we are back. I usually run it again just to make sure. Yep. So maybe I will get rid of some of the debugging. So now we are going to implement this part where we would check the word. If the word has any eyes in it, then we will capitalize it. So we would go through the whole C string, one character at a time, to check if there's an I in it. So we will use a for loop. Loop through I equals to 0 to I smaller than the size of the word, and then I plus plus. And in here, if the character, which I mean is word I, is in so I think what I would do is to say to lower, to just make it a lowercase, so that I checked just the lowercase I, and so I don't have to, have two two conditions. One is for uppercase, one is for lowercase. And if there's an I inside the word, I will capitalize the whole word, and then I will break out from this for loop. So remember, break out from a loop. Only one though, not all the loops. So it will only break out from the for loop and stop. It means then checking for whether the word has I in it has been done. So before we continue, I want to test this, if this works first. I think it's a generally good practice to always test your program, like, not in a huge piece, but a little bit at a time. That is really a tip for you. So let's see if that is working. I guess I need to see out the word so then we can check it. And so you can see the first word is not capitalized, which is correct. The second word is, the third word is, the fourth one is also. So it looks like it's working. We should probably give it more test cases. So let's do it again. Let's maybe yeah, give some like capital. Too many eyes though, maybe. And so it really didn't do anything to the ones that doesn't have an I in it, and this one it was able to make it a lowercase, the rest lowercase, and looks like all is good. So we comment this out and then implement the last basically bit of this program, which is to add the word into a sentence. So what function would we use? As you, I think, it's been a while, but in there's a cat function. So stringcat, it's basically appending one string into the first string. Basically the first string is the target, the second parameter is what you want to append to the first parameter. So we would also add a space in it, so that not all the words are all stick together. And for this case, the end of so before the end, the last word, there will be one extra space, but because we are outputting it to the screen and it's not going to hurt anyone, when we process files though, one extra character might make a difference, but in this case it doesn't. And also this is for demo purpose, so I will just let it be. So let's compile and run it again and do our last bit of testing. I'm just going to type what I see in the book in front of me and see if everything works. So as you can see, the definition, the word definition is capitalized, is capitalized, given is capitalized, in is capitalized, and then the word display is skipped. I think because there's already 10 words, and so this is the 11th, so the program didn't process it as expected. I think this is it for this video. So we are going to go on to string class and actually doing the same program but using that library instead, and see what's the difference. See you soon.